Tell me it's working. Kids should not bark right now. Hey everyone, it's Katrina, aka Nitty, back at you with another video today. Just wanted to provide a quick update based on the last video. I talked about my parents being away out of the country for a little bit. They are okay, the 14 days has passed, no signs or symptoms, so yay. But moving on to today's video, I was watching a grief video the other day on YouTube. Just somebody was giving advice to a woman who had just recently lost her husband. And the advice he gave her was actually something I feel like I've talked about on this video, but I've never really gone in depth about. But I feel like it's a really important thing to understand when you're going, the important thing, like this particular thing, to understand when you're going through your own grief journey, because as we all know, we get hit with grief waves, and in the beginning it feels like we're getting hit with very aggressive grief waves that are very close together. So this advice that was given was more so that long term, not just like what to do like, you know, in the first year, but kind of what happens in the second year that might make you think you're crazy. Oh, hey there, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to get alerted when I make new videos. Here's what they said, and I'm just gonna read it off my laptop here. The first year of loss is what I refer to as the coasting year. And the next year is going to be harder, and the reason it's going to be harder is because you've already gone through the first. Birthdays, anniversaries, the holidays. When we get to the second year of loss, the people that are in your life that are supporting you kind of go back to their life. And what feels like for them is that they did their job, they helped you. And then you're going to feel like now you're in this raw place of, what is wrong with me? I feel worse this year. I want you to remember this. You're not going to be worse. You're just in that place where you're supposed to be. Some things were said there, but we're going to go through them, okay? The reason why I think this is important is because as somebody who experienced this, it is true. During that first year, I felt numb to anything and everything. I remember my cousin had a baby, and like I literally could not be happy for her, which sounds horrible, but at the time you're so consumed with your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions that you don't have extra to spread around, right? We go back to those energy levels and what they're like when you're going through grief. If it didn't pertain to my grief, I felt numb towards everything. And people do go back to their own lives. And the second year, I did have a breakdown that was brought on by the anger I had towards losing Mike. But looking back on it now, that was actually a really big turning point in my grief and was where I needed to be at the time. First, people do go back to their own lives, and we can't fault them for that. People had their own lives before your grief was turned on. And over time, it's just hard for them to keep up with the amount of time that they can give you and sit with you and use to support you. You know, like I said, we can't fault them for that. Everyone has their own lives. They don't disappear completely. They're still there for you, unless they're not. And in that case, you're experiencing something grief or any hard time can show you is that exactly who is there for you and who isn't there for you. Who's going to take your absence in their lives personally, and who's going to understand that it has nothing to do with them and that you're just going through a super difficult time and you're trying to adjust and figure things out and really what the hell your life is like now. But when the people that are there for you go back to their own lives, you still are kind of stuck figuring out what the hell your life is now. And this could start as soon as things start to calm down after the funeral and things are over. And side note, I feel like people that aren't like in it just like decide in their minds the funeral is going to be the hardest part for you. But for me, and you might be able to relate, the funeral was the easiest part for me. I was still numb and really in complete shock because I had not even begun to comprehend my new reality. I had no idea. Shock. You guys know, you've been there. Shock. It's like somebody dumped your head in a bucket of cold water or something. Like, whatever, it's shock. It's complete shock. And I 100% agree that the first year is kind of like a coasting year, because I was in my own grief coma, and I've said that term a few times on this channel. And even though I could feel things towards my own grief, I probably didn't feel the magnitude of it in that first year, because this is something I learned going through grief counseling, is that your body and your mind kind of prevents you from feeling everything all at once. That's why we go into states of shock. That's why it takes longer for things to really sink in. That's why we are numb, because if we did feel everything all at once, we would implode on ourselves. But you guys know Mike passed towards the end of 2014, and I say I was in a grief coma until the end of 2016. But in that time was my coasting year, and then was my breakdown as well. That first year going through that numbness though, I can see how that might make people think they're doing better with their circumstances than they actually are, and what that can do to silence that voice in your head that's telling you to go get help. But that first year is when you should be getting help, because when you feel all the things that grief makes you feel, like anxiety, like depression, like stress, like cloudiness, like forgetfulness, you know that that's just not you going crazy. That's just a side effect of grief. And B, when that second or third year or that numbness starts to lift, you have already built yourself a foundation of things that you know can help you deal with your grief. And part of that foundation will be the tools that you learn to help you deal with your anxiety, your depression, your panic attacks maybe, the numbers that lead you to your therapist or counselors, breathing techniques, the knowledge that you can search out other healing modalities like yoga, meditation, journaling, painting, and just knowing that it is okay to give yourself a moment to feel the emotions that you're feeling and not judge yourself for them, because they are completely normal. Completely normal. My second year of loss in 2016 was interesting. I was working at a job that I quit probably about the springtime, and I started working full-time at a fine dining restaurant, which I thought I loved, but grew to hate that place. I was being pretty irresponsible and overall just didn't give a f***. And I also noticed day by day, I just got angrier and angrier. I would wake up angry. I would go to bed angry. If one small thing happened at work, it would set me off and ruin the rest of my shift. I just wasn't happy with anything that was going on in my life during that time. And I especially didn't like them because Mike wasn't there anymore. And that made me shoot my anger out at everything. I think for the first time in my grief journey, I not only realized I wasn't at all happy, but it was time to make a change, because I couldn't continue down the road I was going, quite frankly. And I feel like it was kind of my rock bottom in my grief journey. So I did what any Italian girl living with her parents would do. I admitted everything to my mom. I told her I needed to quit my job, and she supported me in that. And then I took some time before I made my next move, because Lord knows with all that anger, I needed a way to adjust and give myself a moment. So nearing the end of summer 2016, I started my jewelry company, because jewelry was something I was doing to help me with my grief anyways. And I did that for 5 months. And then at the end of 2016, with the help from a really good friend of mine, I decided to go back to school. I got a job at the beginning of 2017 at a local pub and applied for OSAP, which is the Ontario Student Assistant Program, to help me pay for that. So as shitty as that was, believe me, it was shitty, it helped me slow down, take time, and figure out where I needed to be, because it was exactly where I needed to be at that point in time. If I had that breakdown without having that prior help that educated me on grief, I'm going to full on bet that that outcome of that breakdown wouldn't have been like that. I wouldn't have known that that anger I was feeling was a normal part of the grieving process. I wouldn't have been able to relate that back and understood that I was not okay and I wasn't doing anything productive to help me deal with my grief. I would have judged myself more for having that breakdown, because believe me, I judged myself for having it anyways, because I'm human and that's what we do, right? We judge ourselves for the emotions we have. And that's where my mindfulness, like training or just speaking to a mindfulness coach, comes in, where it's like, it's okay to have those emotions and let yourself feel it, and then thank that emotion for being there and let it pass through you and onward and outward. Anyways, that breakdown might have lasted longer. It might have taken me longer to recover, and I wouldn't have built up that list of things that helped me deal with my pain, my anxiety, my depression, my stress, my anger. And I'm pretty sure that's when I bought my punching bag too. So all I'm saying is that in that first year of loss, you might feel, because you have people around you, because you're still kind of numb to things, that you're doing okay and that you probably don't need to seek help. But there will come a time when that illusion fades away, that curtain drops, and you're going to feel super raw and wonder what the hell is wrong with you. And as someone who is grieving, who no longer understands the world around you anymore, and you don't recognize it anymore because your loved one isn't in it, your best defense is to get yourself help. As much as it sucks, as much as it scares you, it is your best defense. There is strength from getting help. And if it wasn't for my mom, who literally had to come into my room, sit on my bed and hand me a phone and say, Ninny, it's time, I honestly don't know where I would be. And for those of you that don't have somebody that's literally coming into your room, sitting on your bed and handing you a phone, I'll be that person for you. I am telling you right now that it's time. It's time to get yourself help. Maybe that looks like researching more online, like sources to learn from, or calling a therapist or a counselor. I know the times right now that we're in, it makes it a bit harder, but I'm certain there's over the phone help that you can get. I will research some and put some at the end of this video. If that's where you're at right now, I will do that. But it's just time. And another thing I know for sure is that you got this. Okay? You got it. This feeling that feels like it's never gonna go away, trust me when I say that one day it will. You just gotta put in the work. You gotta get yourself help, and you freaking give yourself a lot of patience. That's another thing grief teach you is patience, man. Like, because all it is time. You got to do what you can with the time, or else the time doesn't matter if it's 5 years from the time you lost your loved one, or 10 years. If you don't do anything with that time, you're not bettering yourself. You're not trying to help yourself. That sounded harsh, but I hope you guys know what I'm saying. It's just so important. And I believe in you, and I know that you got this. I know you can do it for yourself, because if I could do it, you could do it. Okay, now that my little rant there is over, you got this. I believe in you. Keep fighting for yourselves. Do the work, get help, and then do more work. You got this. I believe in you. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.